Hey, what's going on YouTube? I got something a little different here today. So when I went to buy my first pair of side cutters, I searched Google, I looked all over. I did find a couple threads on some forums where, people argued about what they thought was the best, but I couldn't find any definitive information. There wasn't the typical, best video card shootout or best sports sedan shootout. You usually find that kind of thing for everything in life, but I could not find anything actually going and comparing a bunch of different brands of side cutters or flush cutters. So what I have here today is a whole crap load of lots of different brands that I happen to own of side cutters, and I'm going to compare them all and tell you which is the best. And because I'm not here to make a dime out of this, I'm here to just inform. I'm going to start by telling you the winner. Right here. The Hakko CHP 170. And that's even going up against these Lindstroms that cost, anywhere from 10 to 20 times more. And I'll tell you the reason. The reasoning, you can get these for $5. And for $5, the blades are nice and sharp. They line up well. They hold a decent edge if you cut what you're supposed to be cutting with them. I mean, if you go cut piano wire with them, they're obviously going to be dull after one use. But if you cut component leads of reasonable size and you stick to stuff like that, they'll stay nice and sharp for a very long time. And if they don't, they are only $5, so you just get back on Amazon or wherever you shop, spend another $5, and you have a brand new pair, which actually is why I have a couple of these. And actually, it's not the only one I have multiple of. There's another brand that's a decent runner-up. It's Exolite, and I have multiple of these. They're cheap, and they're kind of similar to the Hakko. I think the Hakko ones are a little better in quality, and the grips feel a little better. But ergonomics between all of these, it's pretty similar. I think the Hakko ones probably have one of the best feels as far as the grip, just because there's more material and it's actually bigger. Bigger isn't always better. If you look at the Lindstroms, I don't believe they have any like standard length. What are they, like 170 millimeter? I don't think they have any like standard length ones. This is as long as this gets for the Lindstroms, as far as I know. And then they have ones that are even smaller. Now, to show you how small that tip is, which there's good purposes for these. You can't get a Hakko with a head this size that I know of. I think Hakko just has a couple of models. See the size of that head versus the tiny one on the Lindstrom. Size does affect comfort, and these Lindstrom ones are just. It's like it feels smooth. It almost feels rubberized, but it's just it's just a sharp, hard plastic. So there's nothing really super comfortable about them. And this one actually doesn't spring open. I like any of my cutters to have a really solid springing action, so when I open it, it opens up well on its own. And this one, especially because when you're holding it with one hand and you go to open it, generally you release either your thumb side or the side that your other fingers are on. So you kind of have to loosen your grip, and if the spring isn't very strong on them, it makes it kind of awkward to open the head back up. Because see, this one struggles to open up very far. Granted, you would use this one on things that are a lot smaller. So I will cut some leads with all of these under my mag lamp here, which is what this video is being recorded through, to show you that they all cut exactly the same, as long as you're cutting materials that you're supposed to be cutting. Like I said, if you take even these, I think these are like $60–70 Lindstroms, and try to cut piano wire, you're going to make them dull the very first time you use them. So if you use them for cutting like through-hole component leads, they're going to last forever. So if you're using them for what you're supposed to use them for, these $5 Hakkos will last just as long as these $50, $60, $70 Lindstroms will. Out of I think, what is it, Switzerland or Sweden? I don't remember. They don't say anymore on them like they used to. But yeah, $5. That's why I think the Hakko wins. They even have like I think it was a 5-pack for like $21 on Amazon. So even if you do decide to cut some piano wire with them and you ruin a pair, you still have 4 other pairs and you've only spent $20. So that's why I like these. I'll show you that these $5 ones cut just as well as these, just like butter through whole components. I'll show you what else I have. Actually, I guess I can give you the model numbers. So this is the Lindstrom 8140. And the white one is the Lindstrom 7190. And then the one I already showed you, and I said is the winner, is the Hakko CHP 170. And the 170 you see on a lot of these, that's the length from tip to the end of the handle. So it's 170 millimeters. And the Lindstrom ones are like 140 or something like that. They're considerably shorter. I have these Play-Doh ones. And a lot of them will have a rating on the max size that you're allowed to cut with them. And if you obviously cut something bigger than that or harder than that, you risk ruining them. I have these Exolite 170Ms, but that's, like I said, that's the length. That might also be the model number in this case. These are also very cheap. I don't remember how much they were, but they're under $10, I believe. Then you have these unmarked ones that I bought from, I think I got these at Micro Center. But any electronics parts store in their area with tools should have something like this. I think this was like $10 or $7, or I don't know. It was really cheap. And as far as cutting, honestly, this cuts just as well as the Hakkos or Hakkos, however you want to pronounce that, and all the other brands. As long as you cut what you're supposed to cut with these, most of these will last you forever. If someone tells you that you have to spend $70 on a pair of Lindstroms to get a proper set of side cutters, tell them I said that they're a dumbass, because you can spend $5 and they will cut just as well. And I soldered this together, so I have a bunch of leads to cut, and I will cut with every single pair here and show you that the $5 ones will cut just as well as the expensive Lindstroms. This is a Xuron. I don't know if you can see that, yeah. And then my last one, Knipex. Yeah, I think these are German. I think these are German. Yeah, actually, I think I see Germany right there. These are also highly praised. I've seen a lot of people rave about these on the forums. These are also high priced, kind of in the, I'd say like $40 to $50 range, kind of like the Lindstrom ones are. And these aren't the only brands. There are some other brands out there, but the Hakko ones are probably the most common ones you'll see because they're the most accessible. They're $5, nice and cheap. So these will be my expensive ones outside of the 2 other Lindstrom ones you saw. And the 2 Lindstroms are different colors, they're different models. They have different series. They have like 10 different series. So to buy all of them to show you in this video, I would have had to spend like $500. It is crazy how many different models or different lines of cutting tools they have, and then each line they have different models with different size heads. I mean, they really have a ton. And so for me to compare all of the Lindstroms, I would have spent $500 to $1,000, if not more. So I just bought a couple, not just for the video. I've had one of the 2, and the other one I bought more recently. But I bought ones with the smaller heads because that's one of the things the Lindstroms have going for them is they have tons of different head sizes to choose from. So they have nice tiny ones. So when you have a really tiny circuit board and there's a lot of stuff sticking out of them, and you need to sneak in the middle there somewhere in a really tight spot and get a cut, something with a bigger head, like, don't get me wrong, this isn't a big head, but, when you compare it to something like this, that can get into a much tighter spot to get the cut. So, the more expensive ones they have their purpose, but more times than not, you'll be fine. And also, just for fun, I'm going to compare some of these. I'm sure everyone has a pair of these. Actually, I have several to show you. Okay. I have some blue ones. I have some red ones. And some black ones. I'm sure everyone's got a bunch of these. They're just cheap. You get them in just like your little generic, I don't know, your little Christmas tool pack kind of deal. They get the job done, but I will show you that compared to actual side cutters meant for cutting electronics leads, these suck. So let's just stick with, for example, we'll just use this black one. No need to test 4 of the same thing. And also I have some of these. These are obviously huge, just a pair of dikes. Or diagonal cutters, I guess, depending on what country you're in. They might not be called dikes, but in the United States, they're generally called dikes. The really big, beefy cutters that are meant to be able to cut some pretty thick stuff. And then, just for fun, also, it's completely not for the right thing. These are 10 snips. As you can see, they are so large I can't even fit them in the shot. We'll try to cut a lead with these, and you know, you might laugh and say that's stupid, but I've actually had a friend cut leads with some of these because he couldn't find his normal pair. I'm like, come on, man, $5 to buy you some Hakko side cutters, so there's no reason you should be using 10 snips. Now these are awesome for cutting really thick metal and stuff. Like if you're cutting sheet metal, this will just cut through it like butter. But for through hole stuff, that's not what it's meant for, and it'll suck. So what we're going to be cutting, it's this super top secret nuclear detonator that I made, and if the government saw this, I would probably be held off to jail. But you get a sneak peek, and I will start clipping these leads just for the purpose of this video, so consider yourself lucky. Let's start off with the Knipex. These are expensive and made in Germany, so surely these will cut through a lead like butter, right? Not a problem. Next up, Play-Doh. Couldn't tell you how much it cost, but I will say that I don't believe they cost more than about $10. So, snip right through them. Next, we will try the unmarked ones, some generic ones that I got from Micro Center. Sliced right through, and these are not requiring any force at all. If you've never used side cutters and if you've been using something like these your whole life, man, go out and spend the $5 to buy a pair of Hakko side cutters. They will cut through leads so much easier, and it'll change your life. But more on that later. These are the Exolite ones, which are also relatively cheap, like $10, I believe. Die straight through. And you know, I'm actually, with the first several, I actually cut them with the tip, which requires more force than cutting them farther in. Because sometimes you don't have room and you have to actually cut with the tip. So, to me, cutting with the tip kind of gives a better representation of your worst case scenario. So now the Lindstrom 7190s. And sorry if I'm slow getting the cut lined up. It's really hard. I have my camera on top of my mag lamp covering my shot, or my own personal view, so it's kind of hard to get in here. Okay, here we go. And for some reason that one didn't go flying like the other ones did, but cut through like butter. Might as well do the other Lindstrom, the Lindstrom 8140. Could help if I had it the right way up. Okay. Now, those did feel a little better, like, I don't know, precision machine, maybe the blades lined up a little better, and maybe they're a little sharper, I don't know. I felt like it took a lot less force. Instead of taking a lot of force and then all of a sudden it just snapped, these felt like they were just cutting through it like butter, so there was an even amount of force the entire time. So maybe there's a slight benefit to the more expensive ones, I don't know. The Knipex didn't seem to do that, but let's go back to them and give them another shot. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I don't know. And you know, these are a bunch. I pulled these out of my like unsorted resistor drawer. I have a really large drawer just full of thousands and thousands of unsorted resistor values. It's kind of one of those. I finish a project on a solderless breadboard, and when I'm done, I just throw them into this giant drawer. I don't bother sorting them because they're so cheap. It's easier just to buy a new bag of known values. So let's give a Lindstrom a try again, because that Knipex one definitely did not feel as good. Okay, here we go. Yeah, see, for some reason with the Lindstroms, the leads don't go flying, and it felt like I was cutting progressively through it instead of just not cutting, and then boom, it snaps through it. So could be in my head, I don't know, but let's try the Hackos. Okay, here we go. Yeah, see, those felt okay. Well, let's try the other Hackos. It's the same exact model, I just have a couple. Yeah. Cut right through it like butter. And then, last but not least, the Xuron. Okay, here we go. And see what I mean about those? They just kind of snap through it. Now let's go back to the Lindstroms again, just to make sure this isn't in my head and I didn't get lucky and happened to cut the really soft leads when I was on the Lindstroms. So we'll try this one. Yeah, did you see that? It cut through really, really easily with almost no force, and then the lead didn't go flying, which is weird. Let's try one more. That is bizarre. Let's try it with the other Lindstroms, the not as small ones. Now, this is for a much higher wattage resistor, so the lead's thicker. But let's see. Now see, that one snapped. Let's try it on a smaller, normal size lead. Yeah, look at that. Oh, sorry, that was probably out of view. See, I think some of the ones that are just going flying are the ones that aren't as soft. They're a harder metal. Well, see, now they're all flying, so let's go back to one of those small little quarter-watt ones. Yeah, so maybe the ones where the Lindstrom ones just cut through like butter and didn't send the leads flying. Maybe those are just a fluke. Maybe it was just the harder leads. You know, some of those leads look like they're chrome plated and they seem a little bit harder than some of the other ones that are softer, like lead. Not saying they're made of lead, just saying they're softer like lead. Okay, now let's try the unconventional poor saps who put themselves through torture cutting their leads with these. Man, I'm putting a lot of force on that. That took a ton of force. I don't know if you can see the blood running out of my hand. Let's try a thick lead with these crappy things. And I'm intentionally cutting with the tip, remember, because I said to get into a tight spot, sometimes you can only get the tip down there, so yeah, I had to squeeze pretty hard to get that to go through, so these suck. Yeah, like I put all the force I possibly could, but the tips are so dinged up and they don't line up well enough that even after they're closed as much as I could get them to close, so you can even see a gap through there. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but you can see how terrible the tip is. So yeah, cutting with something like this sucks. Even when they're brand new, these suck. Versus when you get just a cheap pair of $5 Hackos, absolutely no force required. So $5 Hackos, as you saw, cut basically just as well as even the $50, $60, $70 Lindstroms. Now let's go up the chain to something even crappier. A pair of dikes. And And you know, sometimes you have no choice. You have to use what you got on hand, and if you got a pair of dikes, you lost your side cutters, or you broke them cutting piano wire, well, you got to improvise. See how they do. Yeah, that's as tight as I can get that to close. I don't know if you can see the blood running out of my hands, but yeah, so these dikes suck. Let's try the other pair. These are even thicker and heavier. Now that didn't take a whole terrible amount of force. The handles are longer, so you have better leverage, and the tip is not as abused on this pair. It's a slightly newer pair. They're not new, but they've been tortured less than my older pair. So I mean, they can get the job done. The problem is, if you look how giant this, I mean, this entire head is like the size of half of my entire breadboard here, so, or perfboard, or whatever you want to call it. So, you know, if this is all you got, these can possibly get you by. But if you have to do any cutting that involves getting really close to the board and you don't want the leads sticking up, these aren't going to be the greatest, or if you're in a tight spot. And plus, even despite having a handle this long, they still take considerably more force than a sharp pair of flush cutters. And just for fun, let's see what the tin snips do, if I can even get them to work for this. Yeah, this is horrible. Yeah, I mean, these things have crazy leverage and power. I mean, they can cut pretty decently thick sheet metal, so I mean, it works, but it is definitely not, this is like a blunt instrument for precise surgery. But as you can see, when you use something that imprecise, it leaves the leads sticking out quite a ways, versus even using a pair of cheap Hackos like this. You can get them nice and flush. Sorry, it's really hard to do this upside down through the camera. See, now they're flush. And then we'll cut this the thicker component lead for this like 1-watt resistor. But like I said, $5 Hackos. If I were to recommend a pair of side cutters, just get a couple of pair of these. One breaks, you got a backup, and you still only spent $10. You want to buy 3? Fine, $15. But guess I'll go back through since I have a few leads left. I'll cut a couple with a couple more of the Hackos, since it's the shining star of my personal review of all these and winner. Now, let's say money is not an object and you wanted the best pair. I'm not going to necessarily say that you should still go with a Lindstrom. If that's the case, I think the Knipex, the German ones, are actually more comfortable in the hand. It feels more like rubber versus kind of the harder plastic. I mean, it feels like the Lindstroms feel like a rubberized plastic, but if you look at them, they're really sharp. They've got sharp edges, and they're just not that comfortable. The outside it's rounded a little bit, and it feels smooth. It really does. But these actually feel like grippy rubber. So, and they're a little longer too. Not by a whole terrible amount, but the extra size and girth on the handle makes the Knipex more comfortable. And I think these are still like $10 or $20 cheaper. I think these are like $45 or something. If I remember, they could be a little more, I don't know. If money's not an object, I would actually recommend these over the Lindstroms. And then, or hell, if money's not an object, buy all of them. But if money is an object and you don't want to waste your money, you really can't do much better than $5 Hackos. $5 freaking dollars. These are so cheap and they do the job. And one of the two of my Hackos, I don't know which is which. I tried looking at them, but the wear on the blades is so well that I can't actually tell which one my new one is and which my old one is. And my old one has cut hundreds and hundreds and maybe even thousands of component leads. and they both look the same to me. The other one's probably only done like 100, and so the one that's cut 1,000 looks no different from the one that cut 100, and I can't tell them apart. Maybe there's a date code on them or something, I don't know. But out of the two I have, where's the other one? Yeah, I can't tell them apart, and they're both great. But that shows you, though, despite having used the crap out of these, they still work fine. And they cut through component leads like butter. And especially if you cut them more inside, they just dice right through them. So yep, $5 hackos. So now I've cut a couple more. We'll go back through. So these are the Zerons. These are the Knipex. The Lindstroms. The other Lindstroms. That's funny. I did the Lindstrom again, and instead of the thing flying, it just cut through it really softly and held on to the lead. Yeah, look at that. They both did that. So maybe there is something to the more expensive Lindstroms, but they're not comfortable. They're really small. The handles are tiny. These are like 140 millimeter versus all the other ones are 170 millimeter. So comfort is not there, but they do seem like they're machined really well, and it seems like it cuts better. You saw it on the video. Each time I cut with these, not each time, but almost every time I cut with these, you didn't hear a sharp click. It just cut through like butter really smoothly with very little force, and then held onto the lead until I released force. So that's kind of cool. These are Exolites. Looks like I only have one lead left, so we'll make it last. My other pair of Exolites. The Platos. The unmarked, no name. And just for grins, we'll cut the rest of this one off with the Lindstroms. Yeah, isn't that weird? That same one, when I cut with the cheaper ones, they went click, and then the lead went flying. I cut it with the more expensive Lindstroms, and it didn't click. It just cut really softly through it without force, and then it held onto the lead until I let go and brush it off of there. So maybe there is something to the more expensive Lindstroms. I still can't recommend it over all the other ones, especially when the, as you saw, the $5 hackos cut through all these leads. Just the same as expensive ones. So really, I think having a pair of these for $5 is worlds better than trying to do all your cutting with something like these or these. So if you care about value, get the hackos. Model number CHP 170. And the weird thing is, the hackos, they don't say hacko on them anywhere, but they're definitely hackos. But apparently they're made in Italy. I thought they were Japanese, but maybe that's where they're assembled. I don't know. But that's it. So now, for other people who go out and try to figure out what a good brand of side cutters is, we'll realize that they all actually kind of do the same thing. So based on that, then you just got to go off of price. And I would say the $5 hackos, being the cheapest, would be definitely your best bang for the buck. And as you saw, if you spend a little more money and you have a specialized need for ones with really tiny heads to get into tight spaces, some of the more expensive European ones, like the Lindstrom ones, do serve a purpose. And as you saw, for some reason, they seem to cut more quietly, and they didn't send the lead flying into the air as often. So maybe you can get yourself a pair of these for Christmas or something, and see for yourself if you think they're better than the Hackos. I'm not completely sure that they're better, but I mean, the construction and the quality and the feel of these things, it's definitely up there. But these don't feel cheap either. They feel like they're designed to a price point, but they don't feel cheap. I mean, it feels nice and smooth. It closes flush. Okay, I do have a tip though. I don't remember which one of these. It might be one that's in my drawer. These are flush cutters. They have near flush cutters where they're slightly beveled on this flush side, and those hold their edge for so much longer than the actual full flush ones like this. So if you want ones and you want your one pair to be able to last a lot longer, get the beveled ones. They look like flush cutters, but on the flush side they have a slight bevel, and that gives it so much more strength, and they will last a lot longer if you get those. But like I said, $5, buy 2 or 3 of these and you'd be good. There's no need to spend $50, $60, $70 unless you just want the name brand stuff, or have some special niche need, or need some, you know, some ESD safe flush cutters. But yeah, that's it. So now that should kind of give you an idea of where to put your money, and hopefully it was helpful, because when I went to buy my first pair of side cutters, all I could find through Google searching was just some arguments, not arguments, but, you know, constructive discussions about who thinks what, and all it ended up being is one guy saying, hey, I'm an electrician and I use the Knipex brand and I have all their tools and it's the greatest and I won't buy anything else with my money. And then the very next guy says the exact same thing, only he says it about his Hackos, and then someone else will come in and say the same thing about some other brand that they like. So it's it's kind of a crapshoot, and hopefully this kind of helps make the decision easier for you, because when it was my turn to make a decision, it was not easy, and all I ended up doing was going and just buying a generic pair from I think it was Radio Shack, and then I bought some other pairs kind of like these that I got from Micro Center that don't have any branding on them, but you know, they were like under $10, and you know, honestly, they do the job fine too. So you don't need to buy anything fancy when it comes to side cutters. But hey, I happen to have a lot of different brands, a lot of different sizes, and figured that I'll put them on camera, do some cutting for you, and show you that it's really not that tough of a choice. They all do the job. You just got to decide on how much money you want to spend. So I think 33 minutes on just the topic of side cutters is more than excessive. So I'm going to stop rambling now, but I'll see you in the next video.